Take a look at the Caldwell AR-15 pick rail brass catcher. It's a bag here that mounts to the top rail of the rifle, and it's supposed to catch your brass when you shoot so that you don't wind up having to hunt all the way around the shooting area to be able to pick up your brass. This rifle that I built here in 300 Blackout, I've always had a problem of when I'm out shooting, this thing will kick the brass a good ways out to the back, so I have trouble finding all my brass all the time. So I wanted to try something to see if I could catch the brass as it comes out of the rifle but not cause any malfunctions with the rifle, so that it doesn't cause any problems with the ejection of the shells themselves, but still be able to get everything so I don't have to go hunt the brass, and I can keep up with this brass that you know, nowadays is getting hard to come by, so you want to keep as much of this stuff as you can. So let me show you a little bit how this thing works. It has a mount right here on top of the pick rail, and it just goes on any of the slots around the ejection port here. The bag itself has an opening so that you can put it over the ejection port, and this piece here is adjustable so that you can move it back and forth to be able to get it to fit on your particular rifle, depending on how you've got the optics set up on top of the rifle. Now, that is one of the issues that I've got with this thing, and it's not necessarily the bag's fault, it's the way that I've got my rifle set up. But this piece will adjust. I hadn't got it quite tightened down all the way, but it's got two screws that if you can get the bag off, you can do it without having to go through the bag. But otherwise, you just pull the rim of the bag out a little bit, and you can just go through the mesh. And then there's two screws right here that are on this top plate that you can loosen and slide it down, and then tighten it back up to keep it from moving around on the rifle once you get it in place. And you can kind of tell what time of year we are out here because of all the pollen that has gotten on my bag from just laying on the table. So the issue that I've got with this, the way I've got my scope mounted, this thing takes up pretty well the whole top of the upper receiver, so I don't have any open slots that I can get the bag under to be able to get it exactly positioned right over the top of the ejection port so that it won't hit the edge of the bag. But with the way the bag's designed, with this piece that does slide back and forth on it, then what you do is this just has a groove in the top of it, and then the top of the piece here has got little ears on it that this slides over, and then it's got a couple of little ball bearings on the top of it, and it's got some detents in the top of the piece here so that they don't slide off as easily once it gets locked in place. So with the bag as far back as I can get it, and the arm here as far forward as I can get it in the bag, with the way my rifle is set up with my scope mount here, then I'm still covering the majority of the ejection port. There's just a little bit right here that I can see behind the bag, but I don't think that's going to be a major issue because the brass comes out more toward the front of the ejection port anyway. It might save my the back of the ejection port here from getting beat up quite so much, where the brass always hits it. But I've shot a little bit already, and you can see there's brass in here, so evidently it works. But we're going to show you exactly how this thing works. Now, if you have a dust cover over your ejection port, if you're not able to get the bag completely over the ejection port, then you'll either need to slide the bag off to let your dust cover open up as you load the first round, or go ahead and flip the dust cover down and then slide this back in place, because that dust cover will not come back down if it's not completely inside the bag here. So I had to go ahead and just open up the dust cover to be able to get the rounds to come out and get the dust cover to fall down to where it's supposed to be. So let's go ahead and load up some and see how this is going to work. Okay, so again, I've got this as far back as I can get it on the top rail here. It's just right in front of the scope mount. If the scope had been, I could got it up a little bit higher if it was mounted higher up off of the top rail, or I had scope rings on here rather than the type mount that I've got on here, then wouldn't be as much of an issue. You could mount this thing pretty well anywhere along the top rail in this section and put that piece there wherever you wanted to, and it would cover up the ejection port the way it's supposed to. But with the way I've got my rifle set up, let's see if it's going to work the way it's supposed to. Now, my wife also wanted to mention that now that I've got the brass catcher here, you get a actual angle of the camera from coming directly at the side of the gun, because she's not worried about the brass coming back and hitting her from the ejection port. So let's go ahead and shoot this a little bit and get some close-ups of the bag. As you see it, the brass coming into the bag. That one got loose. Okay, so even with the rapid fire, the bag started working up a little bit there, so I'm going to need to tighten up those screws. They can't stay loose at all and be able to get the bag to stay in place. So we'll need to tighten those screws up. And like I was saying earlier, that's a matter of going through the top of the bag you have to poke the wrench in through the hole and then find the screw. With everything being black, it doesn't show up real well. Okay, get that. It's got one on that side and then one on this side. The screw just is right here on the side of the top plate, and you just got to get it. There we go. You got to fish through this mesh to be able to get to the screw that's at the back of that plate right there. The only other way to do it is to take the bag, it's Velcroed onto the frame itself. So you could possibly take that off. I tried that as a first way of doing it, but it is hard to get this top piece of Velcro underneath this rail right here and be able to get this bag off the frame. So at that point, I just went back and tried to do it the way the instructions said, just going through the mesh itself. So with this fixed in place now, shouldn't have an issue with it moving around. I wanted to see what it would do with the more rapid fire, going just one shot at a time. I wasn't having any issue at all with it catching the brass properly. So I wanted to see what it would do when I got was shooting the rifle a little bit quicker. That's when the vibration caused the bag to start sliding up a little bit, and I had a couple of rounds drop down on my finger, and I felt one of them right there at the very end. But it still at least knocked the round down, so it didn't go shooting out the side. It just dropped right down onto the table, so I was still able to find it. But it's always better if the brass goes in the bag rather than going crazy and going all over the place. The bag itself is a heavy-duty mesh, and it is supposed to be rated so that the hot brass does not melt the mesh itself when it comes out of the ejection port. And the bag looks fine at this point, and that's probably about 30-35 rounds or so in the bag. I shot some previously when I was looking at the trigger that you can watch in another video on the Hyperfire PDI trigger. And so the bag is held up well so far. One other nice option that it has to be able to empty the brass out and put it into whatever container you're going to take the brass back in and process it, for you to be able to do reloading or whatever, is it's got a zipper on the bottom of the bag. So you just open that zipper and everything just falls right out the bottom of the bag. So you don't have to try to dump the bag or anything like that. You just do the zipper and it goes right into your catch bag to be able to put the brass where it needs to be. Those two that ran away from me. So with the Caldwell AR-15 pick rail brass catcher, would I recommend it? Yeah, I would. It's a nice product. It seems to be made very well, and it is a good addition to your rifle so that you don't have to hunt around on the range to pick up your range brass. And if you've got different types of scope rings, or you've got a different type of optic on the top of your AR, or you don't have an optic and you're just using iron sights, then it's not going to be a problem at all for you to be able to mount the piece that goes on the pick rail itself to hold the brass catcher in place. Now, my other AR that I played with a little bit with this bag, I've got a UH-160 Vortex optic on it, and I've got the same kind of issue on that one because it is a mount that goes right here onto the top of the pick rail, right above the ejection port. But I've, again, got enough room that I can get it right at the front of the optic and be able to get it mounted in place. So if I had different scope rings or something on here, then I could use a different part of the pick rail to be able to mount the bag and it be able to work properly. So now that I've got the screws tightened up on this, I'm going to put a few more rounds in here and do another rapid fire session to see if that bag is going to move any while we're shooting. So let's go ahead and load up a few more rounds. Okay, let's go ahead and put the magazine, I've got the mag in. Let's go ahead and put the brass catcher back in place. And it's tight on the rail now. It's not wanting to slide back and forth. So let's go ahead and get her loaded up and see how it's going to do with the more rapid fire. Very good. Caught everything like it was supposed to on that. It didn't loosen back up now. If I wanted to, I could take those screws out. If I knew that I was going to be leaving this in this position, take that out, put Loctite on those screws, and then I know they wouldn't work their way back out. But so far, on just those 20 rounds that I put through it, it didn't move any on that, so I didn't have any rounds miss the bag, didn't cause any jams in the ejection port, so works like it's supposed to. It's a good option. So if you're looking for a way to keep your brass where you want it rather than it flying all over the range, pick up the Caldwell AR-15 pick rail brass catcher. Check out doubleeaglegunworks.com for more information, and like and subscribe at the bottom. Talk to you later.